Have you ever stopped to consider what you're actually doing when you hand over hard-earned money for a bottle of water? You're walking into a supermarket, bypassing a tap that provides near limitless, virtually free, highly regulated drinking water to buy that same substance packaged in single-use plastic at a markup that would make a luxury fashion brand blush. Right now, across the UK, millions of people are doing exactly that because they believe, deep down, that the bottle holds something cleaner, safer, and healthier. It's a testament to the power of marketing that we've been convinced to pay for a fundamental human right. But what if I told you that the image of pristine glaciers and untouched springs is in many cases a complete fabrication? What if I showed you the lab reports and legal documents proving that what's inside some of the UK's favorite bottles is less natural mineral water and more environmental catastrophe waiting to happen? In this video, we are going to unpack the terrifying reality of the UK bottled water industry, an industry that has successfully commodified common sense. You are going to learn which massive brands were caught secretly using illegal filtration methods for over 15 years while still calling their product natural, and which healthy option for kids was recently recalled due to bacterial contamination and elevated manganese levels. I will show you the independent data proving that some of these premium products contain more plastic particles than the stuff coming out of your kitchen tap. And we will count down the top 10 major bottled water brands sold right now in Tesco, Sainsbury's, and Asda that you should seriously think about avoiding. Yes, the single biggest, most trusted brand is on that list, and we've saved it for near the end because the details are truly shocking. But it's not all doom and gloom. Stick around, because I will also give you 4 concrete, evidence-backed alternatives that are actually worth your money. Before we get to the list, we need to talk about what actually happens inside that drinks aisle. The industry wants you to believe there are basically 2 types of water: dirty tap water and pure, bottled paradise. The reality is far more complex and significantly muddier. In the UK, we generally deal with 3 categories of bottled water: natural mineral water, spring water, and ordinary table water or purified water. Natural mineral water is the gold standard, in theory. Legally, it must come from a recognized underground source, be naturally wholesome, and have a constant composition. Crucially, it cannot be treated in any way that alters that original composition. If you do anything to it, you can't call it natural mineral water anymore. Spring water is less regulated. It just needs to be bottled at an underground source, but treatments are allowed before bottling. Then you have table water, which is often just mains tap water that's been filtered or processed further. Here's the trick. Branding and price do not always tell you which one you are buying. These corporations have spent billions designing bottles and writing slogans that make table water from Sidcup sound like glacial runoff from the French Alps. They use scientific language to hide the fact that they've essentially taken your tap water, filtered it, stripped it of character, and are selling it back to you at a 2,000% markup. The fundamental question isn't whether the water is safe. UK regulation ensures that, regardless of the source. The question is, what are you paying a premium for? Because in an alarmingly high number of cases, you are paying for the plastic bottle, the transportation from a country with a lower access to clean drinking water than the UK, and the clever marketing designed to make you feel smart or natural for reaching for that specific cylinder on the shelf. So we've looked at the major bottled water brands currently sold in UK supermarkets. We've analyzed the marketing, the owners, and the uncomfortable lab data. Now we're counting down the 10 brands you should think seriously about avoiding. And later, I'll give you the ones that are actually worth your money. And yes, there are some genuinely good ones. So stick around because that part matters just as much as the rest. Number 10, Smart Water. Let's start with the one that arguably has the most audacious name in the entire aisle. It's everywhere: Tesco, Sainsbury's, Asda, corner shops nationwide. The bottle is tall, minimalist, and looks expensive. The marketing is full of scientific-sounding buzzwords like vapor distillation and electrolytes for taste. They've spent a decade using A-list celebrities like Jennifer Aniston, Gal Gadot, and Zendaya to make you feel like you're buying something elevated and intelligent. But in 2018, the German consumer watchdog Foodwatch gave Smartwater their annual Golden Windbag Award, officially for what they called the most brazen lie in food advertising that year. Why? Because Smartwater is essentially ordinary water sold through a scientifically sounding but completely unnecessary production process. Coca-Cola takes British spring water, vapor distills it, which strips out every naturally occurring mineral, and then adds back tiny amounts of calcium chloride, magnesium chloride, and potassium bicarbonate. You are paying a premium for water that was perfectly good, had its soul removed, and then had a pinch of minerals added back in. The Cleveland Clinic has noted that enhanced hydration claims for these types of waters aren't supported by robust science. You're paying for the branding of an inferior version of the water they started with. Number 9. Dasani. If Smartwater feels like a trick, Dasani was a disaster. In 2004, Coca-Cola spent £7 million launching Dasani in the UK, calling it as pure as bottled water gets, through a technique perfected by NASA. Journalists quickly found out the source was just tap water from Sidcup in southeast London. The British press went nuclear, comparing it to Del Boy's Peckham Spring from Only Fools and Horses. It got worse when the Food Standards Agency found bromate, a suspected carcinogen, at levels above the legal limit. 500,000 bottles were recalled, and 38 days after launch, the brand was killed in the UK. Coca-Cola walked away from a £25 million loss. They eventually bought Abbey Well and launched Smartwater to move past the stench of Dasani, but the basic instinct to sell you processed tap water at a massive markup hasn't changed. Number 8. Evian. This is the UK's best-selling brand, generating over £200 million a year. It sells the dream of the French Alps and glacial purity. But lab tests have found microplastics and traces of BPA in Evian bottles. Think about that. A brand that sells itself on being natural and pure is delivering endocrine disruptors and plastic particles to your system. Plus, the environmental cost of shipping billions of liters from France to the UK in plastic bottles, while claiming carbon neutrality, is a masterclass in greenwashing. Number 7. Volvic. Owned by Danone, Volvic sells volcanic purity. Meanwhile, at the actual source in France, Danone has increased extraction nearly six-fold since the 60s. Local aquifers are collapsing. Public fountains in the town of Volvic have been switched off. A historic 17th century fish farm dried up completely, and a local geologist described Danone's actions as emptying a bathtub from the bottom. When you buy that blue bottle, you're funding the literal drying up of a French community. Number 6. Perrier. This used to be the champagne of mineral waters. In early 2024, leaked documents revealed that Nestlé had been secretly using illegal filtration, UV treatment, and carbon filters on Perrier for at least 15 years while calling it natural mineral water. Under EU law, if you treat it like that, it's not natural mineral water. Then, in April 2024, traces of fecal matter were found in one of their wells, forcing the destruction of 2 million bottles. A 2023 report even found forever chemicals, PFAS, and pesticides at the source. Nestlé settled a fraud case in September 2024 for over $2 million, which consumer groups called a way of burying the case. Before we hit the top 5, if you've watched any of our investigations before, you know what that hype button does right under this video. When you hit it, it pushes this video out to people who are walking into supermarkets right now, reaching for these exact brands without knowing any of this. It's the most powerful thing you can do to help the truth travel as far as the marketing. Hit that now, and let's keep going. Number 5, Fiji water. Sourced from a remote Pacific paradise, right? Well, in 2011, nearly half of Fijians didn't have access to clean drinking water, while the company was making millions exporting theirs. In 2024, the FDA recalled over 70,000 cases of Fiji water for bacterial contamination and manganese levels. It travels 9,000 miles to get to your shelf, burning massive amounts of fossil fuel, just for a bottle that independent tests suggest contains microplastics. Number 4, Nestle Pure Life. This is the lunchbox water. It's mass-marketed to families, but the company behind it has a chairman who once argued that water shouldn't be a public right, but should have market value. Pure Life is often just purified mains water bottled in the same facilities as their other brands. You're buying a philosophy that treats water as a commodity first and a human necessity second. Number 3, Aqua Carpatica. This brand uses a health halo, talking about low nitrates and Romanian mountain purity. It targets parents with a kids range featuring sports caps. Nutritionists say there's essentially zero meaningful health difference between this and well-regulated UK tap water. You are paying for a medical-sounding narrative that isn't backed by clinical benefit. Number 2, Harrogate Spring. It looks like a proud, independent British brand. In reality, it's mostly owned by Danone, the same multinational behind the Volvic and Evian controversies. They've faced massive local backlash for trying to clear established woodland to expand their bottling plant. It's a corporate giant wearing a local mask. Number 1, Voss, the ultimate illusion. A 4-pound 50-pence bottle that a Norwegian TV investigation found was chemically identical to the local municipal tap water in Iveland. It's not even bottled in the town of Voss. That's just a marketing name. In a blind taste test by water experts, it ranked stone cold last. Voss is the absolute peak of the bottled water scam, paying the highest price for the least appealing water, which you could essentially get for free if you lived in the right part of Norway. And now, this is why sitting through that corporate horror show in part 2 was worth it. Because once you know how the machine is wired, you can stop being its prey. It is one thing to know that the industry is full of fecal matter and illegal filters, but you still need to hydrate, and sometimes you're stuck in a train station or a service station where the tap isn't an option. So let's talk about the brands that aren't trying to gaslight you. These are the ones that actually earned a spot on the shelf through transparency, ethics, or just a refusal to play the same dirty games as the giants. First on the list, and the brand that feels the least like a corporate mugging, is One Water. You've probably seen the simple, butterfly-branded bottles in places like Starbucks or Holland & Barrett. One Water is British spring water, but it has a reason to exist that goes beyond just quarterly profits. Their entire business model is built around the one foundation. In a category where almost every other brand justifies its existence with vague, flowery language about volcanic heart or mountain spirit, One Water is the only mainstream brand in the UK with a verifiable humanitarian purpose. Since they launched, they've raised over £30 million to fund clean water projects in some of the harshest environments on Earth. According to their own data, they've helped change over 5 million lives. Now, from a sensory perspective, it's a very clean, neutral spring water. It isn't trying to be premium or alkaline or any of the other nonsense terms used to bump up the price. It's usually priced competitively, around the same as the bad, mass-market brands. But the difference is where that money goes. If you're going to buy a plastic bottle, it might as well be the one that builds a pump in a village that actually needs it, rather than the one that funds a new private jet for a CEO who thinks water isn't a human right. The only downside? It's still a plastic bottle. But as far as the mission-led category goes, One water is the real deal, not just a marketing department's fever dream. Second, we have what many experts consider the gold standard of the UK industry, Highland Spring. If there is a final boss on the good list, this is it. Highland Spring isn't just water from Scotland. It's sourced from 2,500 acres of privately owned, organically certified land in the Ochil Hills in Perthshire. This is the crucial part that separates them from the Volvics of the world. That catchment area has been maintained as a strict conservation zone for decades. There is no farming allowed. There are no pesticides used. There are no buildings, no residents, and no industrial activity permitted on that land. This means when it rains, that water takes up to 15 years to filter down through 400-million-year-old basalt and red sandstone before it is even collected. Because the land is protected, the water starts pure and stays pure. Nothing is added, and more importantly, nothing is removed, which means it actually qualifies for the natural mineral water label without needing the illegal help that Perrier was caught using. The Good Shopping Guide has given Highland Spring an ethical score of 100 out of 100 for 14 consecutive years. They were also the first UK brand to move to 100% recycled plastic bottles. Most importantly, they are independently Scottish. When you buy a bottle of Highland Spring, your money isn't flowing into the offshore accounts of Danone or Nestle. You're supporting an operation that actually treats its source with the respect it deserves. It has a soft, crisp taste that ruins cheaper waters for you once you've had it. Third, if you are genuinely freaked out by that Columbia University study about the 240,000 plastic particles in a single liter, and you should be, then you need to know about Cano water. Cano was the first brand to realize that the plastic bottle itself is often the problem. They sell British spring water in an aluminum can. Why does that matter? For two big reasons. First, physics. Every time you twist a plastic cap, the friction sheds microplastics directly into the water you're about to drink. Aluminum doesn't do that. Second, the environment. The UK's actual recycling rate for PET plastic is abysmal, hovering around 45% for bottles, while aluminum is infinitely recyclable and has a recycling rate closer to 75%. An aluminum can you throw away today can be back on a shelf as a new can in 60 days. From a sensory standpoint, water from a can is a different experience. It stays colder longer, and it lacks that plasticky aftertaste that plagues brands like Evian or Harrogate Spring. It's slightly more expensive. You're paying for the premium packaging. But if you want to sidestep the plastic shedding problem without carrying a heavy glass bottle, Cano is the most practical choice in the supermarket. Finally, we have Brecon Carrig. This is the honest value choice. Sourced from the Brecon Beacons in Wales, one of the most protected natural landscapes in the UK, this brand is the antidote to the Voss style of marketing. It doesn't have a celebrity ambassador. It doesn't have a sleek, cylindrical bottle. It's just an independently operated Welsh water brand that consistently delivers. Its mineral profile, the total dissolved solids or TDS, is between 60 and 120 milligrams per liter. In plain English, that means it's soft water. It's light, it's clean, and it doesn't have that heavy, chalky quality you get with high mineral waters that can sometimes leave you feeling more thirsty than when you started. It's rated well above the benchmark by the Good Shopping Guide and regularly scores top marks in independent blind taste panels. It's the water for people who realize that premium is usually a synonym for overpriced. No lawsuits, no greenwashing scandals, and no drying up of local villages. Just honest water at an honest price. Now that's the list. 4 brands that aren't trying to sell you a fantasy while they pick your pocket. But before we wrap this up, we need to talk about the concrete steps you can take at home to stop being a customer of this industry entirely. Because as good as Highland Spring is, your own kitchen tap is still the ultimate weapon in this fight. Now that you know which brands are playing games with your health and your wallet, we need to talk about how you actually navigate the drinks aisle without becoming a victim of a marketing department. If you're going to spend money on water, you need to be able to read a label like an investigator, not a tourist. The first thing you do when you're standing in front of that wall of plastic in Tesco or Sainsbury's is look for the legal designation. If it says table water or purified water, put it back. That is almost certainly a corporate entity taking municipal tap water, running it through a filter, and charging you a 2,000% markup for the privilege. You want to look specifically for natural mineral water because that carries the highest legal protection in the UK. It means the source is protected and the mineral content is stable. The second rule is to check the back of the bottle for the TDS, total dissolved solids. This tells you how much stuff is actually in the water. If the TDS is under 50, like Voss, you're basically paying for an empty bottle. If it's over 300, it's going to taste heavy and chalky. The sweet spot for a clean, crisp taste is usually between 60 and 150. Rule number 3, avoid the scientific mirage. If the label mentions vapor distillation, reverse osmosis, or added electrolytes for taste, they are describing a process used to make bad water drinkable or to make cheap water sound high-tech. Nature doesn't need a lab to make water, and neither do you. Rule 4, check the parent company. If the small print says Danone, Nestle, or Coca-Cola, you are feeding the machine that is actively extracting from local communities and clearing ancient woodlands. Rule 5, treat artesian as a buzzword, not a guarantee. It sounds like it's being collected by monks in a cave, but it really just means the water comes from a well under pressure. It tells you nothing about the purity or the ethics of the company. Finally, Rule 6, if you are at home, the single best investment you can make for your health isn't a premium brand. It's a high-quality filtration system. A standard jug filter is a start, but if you want to remove microplastics in those forever chemicals, you need to look at 5-stage filters like zero water or a full under-sink reverse osmosis system. Just remember to add a tiny pinch of high-quality sea salt back into RO water to replace the minerals that were stripped out. The bigger picture here is simple, but dark. We have been conditioned to see a basic human necessity as a lifestyle accessory. The industry has spent 40 years convincing us that the water coming out of our taps is lesser, while they simultaneously lobby to keep public drinking fountains out of our city centers and train stations. We have moved from a society that provided free, high-quality hydration as a public health right to one that forces you to buy a plastic-shedding cylinder every time you feel thirsty in public. The one mindset shift you need to make to stop being marketing prey is to realize that you aren't buying water. You're buying a plastic container and a massive carbon footprint. When you realize that the purity in the bottle is often lower than the purity in your kitchen, the whole illusion collapses. If this investigation opened your eyes, and especially if you've been reaching for Smart Water or Evian, thinking you were doing something good for your body, please hit that hype button right now. It is the only way we can bypass the million-pound ad budgets of these corporations and get this data in front of people who are still being lied to. We've covered everything from the hidden truth in fish fingers to the scandals in the egg industry, and we aren't stopping here. Leave a comment and tell us which everyday product you want us to drag into the light next. We read every single suggestion, and your ideas drive what we investigate. Thank you for sticking with us through the data and the dark humor. It's a lot to take in, but once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. Until next time, stay curious, stay skeptical, and protect your plate.